In the summer of 1831, a plague swept through Kuwait so completely that historian Abdulaziz al-Rashid would later write in his 1926 book, History of Kuwait. Kuwait was struck by a great plague that wiped out many of its inhabitants, to the point that it almost became a desolate wasteland. Kuwaitis called this year Sanat al-Ta'un, the year of the plague. Historians estimate 2/3 of the population died, 2 out of every 3 people in the entire country, and almost nobody outside Kuwait has ever heard of it. Sit with that number for a second. 2/3, not a bad harvest season, not a difficult winter, the near total collapse of a nation's population in a single year. And yet, ask most people outside the Gulf about the plagues that shaped history, and you'll hear about the Black Death, maybe the plague of Justinian. Almost no one has heard the word Sanat al-Ta'un. That silence is the first mystery this story has to answer. Here's what made this plague so uniquely devastating. Not just the death toll, but who it killed and why. Kuwait in 1831 was a nautical society. Its economy ran on pearl diving in the Gulf and trade voyages to India and East Africa. The plague struck during pearling season, the exact months when Kuwait's able-bodied men were out at sea, sometimes for weeks at a stretch, hauling oysters up from the Gulf floor in brutal, repetitive dives. And that timing, by pure chance, is the only reason Kuwait survived at all. The men who were gone were spared. Everyone left behind, women, children, the elderly, was not. Think about the mechanics of that for a moment. This wasn't a plague that discriminated by biology. It didn't spare women and children because their bodies fought it off better. It spared the men because the men simply weren't there to catch it. Survival, in Sanat al-Ta'un, wasn't about strength or immunity. It was about geography, about which side of the water you happened to be standing on when the disease arrived. Picture what the survivors came home to. Weeks offshore, hauling pearls from the Gulf floor. Then the boat turns back toward home. Al-Rashid himself recorded it. The travelers who hadn't come back until the plague disappeared found that their wives and children had perished. The city was, by multiple accounts, nearly deserted. Imagine that homecoming. You've spent a month at sea. You don't know what's happened on land. There's no way to know, no way to send word ahead. You round the coastline, the familiar skyline of Kuwait comes into view, and everything looks the same from a distance. It's only once you're close enough to walk the streets that you realize something is deeply wrong. The quiet isn't peace, it's absence. These men didn't have the luxury of simply grieving in place. So they made a brutal, practical choice. They traveled to Al-Zubair, Najd, and coastal towns and remarried. They rebuilt their families from nothing. By doing this, Al-Rashid wrote, they saved Kuwait from extinction. Let that sink in. The survival of an entire country came down to men remarrying strangers in neighboring towns, simply because there weren't enough people left in Kuwait to keep the community alive. This wasn't a triumphant rebuilding. It was closer to a last-ditch, unglamorous act of desperation that happened to work. The poet Mullah Masood, who lived through it, put the aftermath into verse. We saw the houses like the echo of the desert. After inhabiting them, they became desolate ruins. A poet doesn't reach for that kind of imagery unless the reality in front of him actually looked that way, an inhabited town reduced to something resembling an empty desert ruin in the span of a single plague season. But the human cost of Sanat al-Ta'un shows up somewhere unexpected in Kuwait's legal paperwork. Before 1831, Kuwait's legal transactions, property deals, witness statements, community records were handled by judges from the Al-Adasani family. These records became so associated with that family that they were simply called Adasanis. One researcher who compared these documents before and after 1831 found something striking. Entire family names present in the record before the plague, then simply gone afterward. The Al-Harkan, recorded in 1811 at the Al-Saban station. The Al-Najm al-Kharashi, recorded in 1809. The Alman al-Husni, also 1811. The Al-Abdul Wahab family, present in early 19th century documents, absent after. Other families, the Al-Raqraq, bin Faid, Bu Kuwara, bin Kaisum, Al-Badran, gradually disappeared from the record in the years that followed. Take a moment to actually picture what one of these documents looks like. A property agreement, a witness statement on a dispute between neighbors. Ordinary bureaucratic paper, the kind that exists in every functioning society, recording the unremarkable business of daily life. And then, after 1831, certain names simply stop appearing on that paper. Not a death notice, not a final entry marking an ending, just silence where a name used to be. When this evidence was presented on a Kuwaiti history forum, another contributor pushed back, and the disagreement itself tells you something important. He argued that a family's disappearance from the record isn't proof they died. Names could change over time through nicknames and common usage. Families could have fled when word of the plague spread, resettling elsewhere and never being recorded under their original name again. And critically, when a family line had only daughters surviving, no sons to carry the name forward, that alone was enough to make a name vanish from the record, plague or no plague. The bin Faid family, both posters agreed, was a clear case of exactly that. That disagreement matters, and it's worth pausing on, because it's not just a dry academic dispute. It's a question about how history gets erased in the first place. Sometimes erasure looks like violence, an army, a massacre, a fire. And sometimes it looks like nothing more dramatic than a name simply not appearing on the next document, for reasons no one bothered to write down. Both are erasure. Only one of them leaves visible scars. It means we may never know exactly how many of these families were killed outright by the plague, versus how many simply survived, scattered, and quietly stopped being written down under the names they'd always carried. The dead and the disappeared in Kuwait's historical record look almost identical. Sanat al-Ta'un wasn't a single wound that healed and closed. It was the first in a century-long chain of epidemics Kuwait faced almost entirely without medical infrastructure. And this is where the story stops being about one bad year and starts being about 100 years of a country structurally unable to protect itself. Until 1946, Kuwait didn't have the financial resources to build hospitals, train nurses, or provide real treatment at scale. In 1904, the only health service available was a dispensary run by the British Accreditation Foundation, set up by the British accreditor S.G. Knox. Its physicians, British and Indian, treated only BAF employees at first, and later allowed Kuwaitis to be treated, capped at 70 patients. 70. In a country that had, within living memory of some of its elders, lost 2/3 of its population to a single disease outbreak. Kuwait's own emir, Sheikh Mubarak al-Sabah, personally wrote letters to Knox asking for Kuwaitis to be treated there, a head of state, reduced to personally petitioning a foreign official for basic medical access for his own people. Outside that narrow system, ordinary Kuwaitis simply stepped in because no one else was going to. Sailor Ahmed Mohammed Al-Ghanem became known for treating bone fractures. Sheikh Musaid Abdullah Al-Azmi, a graduate of Al-Azhar University in Egypt, learned how to vaccinate against smallpox while studying abroad, then traveled to India to buy vaccine materials, and carried them home through Yemen, Muscat, Ras Al Khaimah, Dubai, and Al-Ahsa. That's 5 separate stops, hand-carrying medicine across hundreds of miles, because there was no other supply chain to do it for him. He turned his own house into a clinic, charging a single kron, 20 fils, per vaccination. In 1913, reformer Farhan al-Khudhair founded the Arabic Charity, dedicating a 2-story Waqf building as a hospital, clinic, and meeting space. The first floor for teaching and a library, the second for physicians and a drugstore. Amir Sheikh Mubarak al-Sabah personally donated 5,000 rupees and medications to support it. Volunteers like Musaid al-Kulaib, Abdul Hamid al-Sania, and Sultan al-Kulaib helped dress wounds and encourage other young men to volunteer their time nursing patients. This was, in effect, Kuwait's entire public health system for a period of its history. One privately funded building, staffed by unpaid volunteers. Even with this charity hospital running, the 1930s brought fresh waves of disease. Dr. Mary Bruins Allison reported witnessing the deaths of many women from viral infections. In 1932, smallpox killed thousands of Kuwaiti children, prompting Dr. Malray to push urgently for vaccination. The Kuwaiti Town Council responded by importing a protective antidote and running a public awareness campaign, posters, free vaccinations from appointed physicians. By the mid-1930s, Kuwaitis were also contending with trachoma-driven eye inflammation, liver disease, dengue, toothaches, skin infections, tuberculosis, unexplained fevers, malnutrition, pregnancy complications, infertility, and heart disease, largely without any formal system to treat them. Read that list again, slowly. That's not a description of a single crisis. That's the baseline condition of daily life in Kuwait for an entire generation. It wasn't until 1939 that Kuwait's Department of Health opened its first true government clinic, a former pharmacy in the internal souk on Al-Amir Street, previously belonging to Muhammad Budai and then Hamad al-Humaydi, before the government purchased it outright 2 months later. Budai became its director, Khalid Abdul Latif al-Duhaim its clerk, Mohammed al-Otaibi its supervisor. That August, Dr. Omar Salama and pharmacist Mohammed Salama joined the clinic. When the space proved too small almost immediately, the government requisitioned a diwania belonging to Haj Ismail Marifi in Sharq to serve as the new health department. Syrian physician Dr. Yehya al-Hadidi, who began work there in 1940, recruited volunteers, Al-Duhaim, Ali Aman, Aisha Jama among them, who worked from sunrise to sunset, dividing the diwania into sections to manage the flow of patients. A borrowed living room, divided into makeshift wards, staffed by volunteers working dawn to dusk. That was the Kuwaiti government's actual health department, over 100 years after Sanat al-Ta'un had nearly ended the country. Meanwhile, in 1918, the influenza pandemic that killed between 50 and 100 million people worldwide, roughly 5% of the entire global population, reached Kuwait too, compounding poverty and harsh Gulf winters into a death toll the country had no way to properly absorb. Measles spread as it did in America, killing many children. Whooping cough, chicken pox, rubella, and even a rare outbreak of dengue moved through the population in the years that followed. Every one of these outbreaks landed on a country that had never been given the chance to build real defenses, because the very disaster that should have taught it those lessons had also wiped out the people and institutions who might have built them. That's the real through line here. Sanat al-Ta'un wasn't a catastrophe Kuwait simply recovered from and moved past. It left behind a legal record full of holes that historians are still arguing over a century later, and it marked the beginning of over 100 years of Kuwaitis improvising their way through epidemic after epidemic. A scattered network of self-taught healers, Waqf-funded charity clinics, borrowed diwanias, and volunteers working sunrise to sunset, because no formal system existed to do it for them. The families who vanished in 1831, whether to death, flight, or a broken male line, weren't an anomaly. They were the first cost in a pattern that repeated for 100 years, one epidemic at a time, one improvised clinic at a time, one volunteer physician at a time. And that is exactly why almost nobody talks about it. Subscribe for more history they never taught you.